it's Jess. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited for today's video. I did this last year and it was so much fun. I love to be able to talk about books that I'm excited about, that I can't wait to get my grubby little paws on. So today's video is going to be 30 books that are coming out next year that I cannot wait to read. Hopefully, if your taste aligns with mine in any way, you will also find a couple of books to add to the TBR. I know it's a problem. Our TBR is never ending and we're always adding more to it, but that is a very good problem to have. I do have a lot of books that I want to talk about today, so let's dive in. I have my notebook ready. The first book that I am hesitantly optimistic about comes out February 6th, and that is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. So Ali Hazelwood is mega popular. She went super viral on Book Talk and is just like an instant bestseller. And I have not read anything by Ali Hazelwood. I just haven't really been interested in her books. However, Bride is going to be her first paranormal romance, and it follows the werewolf alpha and the daughter of the most powerful vampire councilman. And basically, they have to get married to form a political alliance. So it's got like a marriage of convenience trope. I genuinely don't know if I like the marriage of convenience trope, but I love vampires. I love vampires. We know they are a staple of this channel. I'm not necessarily like expecting to read this book and have it be like a new all-time favorite. I mean, it's a possibility, you know. I do think that I'm going to enjoy the book, but it's vampires, and there is definitely a part of me that just wants to read some Ali Hazelwood just to know like what is the hype. I want to give her a try, and this is definitely like the book for me personally to do it on. I don't know if this is gonna be like a win or a loss for me, but we'll find out together. On February 13th, we have one of my most anticipated releases of the entire year, another vampire story. We have An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson coming out. S.T. Gibson wrote A Dowry of Blood, which was originally self-published, but then was picked up by somebody, I don't remember who. I loved A Dowry of Blood. I highly recommend that book. It is a very loose retelling of Dracula, written as like diary entries or letters by Dracula's first wife. Get this next book is a retelling of Carmilla set in the present day, and if you know, Carmilla is one of my favorite vampire stories and one of my favorite all-time classics. I eat it up. The amount of sapphic subtext in Carmilla is insane, and An Education in Malice is also going to be sapphic. It is also set at a very prestigious school, so there are going to be like dark academia vibes to the book if that's something that interests you. I don't really care either way about dark academia, to be honest. Like, I like some of them don't work for me, but I don't care because it's a Carmilla retelling by S.T. Gibson, and I cannot wait. Literally, do not try to contact me on February 13th. Like, I will be unavailable. On February 27th, we have A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen. This is the same author that wrote the Bridge Kingdom series, which is a fairly popular fantasy romance series. This book is the first book in what I believe will be a new fantasy romance series. The reason that I'm interested in this book, though, comes down to like two things. First of all, the book is inspired by Norse mythology, and while I don't necessarily like love Norse mythology, books that are inspired by Norse mythology tend to be set in like very northern and cold climates, and I love books that are set in northern cold climates. I love it. Truly, really, I have no idea why, but when you mix snow in with fantasy, it makes the book better. Like, look at the science behind this. I don't know what to tell you. And then the second reason that I'm interested in this book is because the main character, Freya, has goddess magic and it makes her a shield maiden. From what I can gather, her being a shield maiden gives her like really, really strong protective and defensive magic. And I think that that is really, really interesting. First of all, because when I play video games, I really like playing classes and characters that have a lot of like utility and defense built into their magic. I think it's really, really fun to just be like, ha ha ha, you're trying to hurt me, but you literally can't hurt me at all, no matter what you do. So I think that that is really interesting. Plus, most of the time when you're reading a fantasy book that has magic in it, the magic is usually offensive or creative in some way. So I just think it's really interesting and different to have a more defensive based magic. Anyways, the plot of this book follows Freya, and she is married, but her husband like betrays her somehow, and due to that, she ends up in like this weird fight to the death. I don't know how that all is gonna work out, but in that fight, her magic is exposed, and the Jarl of the land that she lives in is like, that's some powerful magic, and he forces her to swear a blood oath to him and then places his son as her bodyguard to protect her. So it is a fantasy romance. There's definitely going to be some romance between like her and the Jarl's son, but overall the book's premise sounds super, super interesting. I'm very intrigued. Definitely want to check it out. Moving into March, on March 5th, if you are a plebeian like me and did not back the Brandon Sanderson Kickstarter, you can finally get a hold of a copy of the hardcover of The Sunlet Man. This is secret project number 4. It is a Cosmere novel, and that's all I know about it. I am avoiding all discussion of The Sunlet Man. Please don't talk about it in the comments other than to say like I liked it or I disliked it. Like, I don't want any details. I don't want to know a plot synopsis. Like, no, nothing. I'm avoiding everything about this book, so I'm sorry I can't tell you what it's about. I just know it's a Cosmere novel. It's coming out in March. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna read it. Hopefully I like it. If you need to know more, Google is your friend. Also on March 5th is House of Open Wounds by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the second book in the Tyrant Philosopher series. I don't know how many books are planned in that series, and it is the sequel to City of Last Chances, which is a book that I bought and I have not read, but I want to read it by March 5th. Adrian Tchaikovsky is an extremely prolific and well-loved author, so I do want to try out something from him. He primarily writes sci-fi, which is not like my favorite genre, so I got really excited last year when he put out City of Lost Chances, and I got it. Because the cover is just so stunning. It is one of the most creepily and grossly beautiful covers I've ever seen in my life. So I'm not even gonna lie. That was definitely a big draw, but like also the premise sounds really interesting. It's a very dark fantasy. It's set in a city that is currently occupied and basically is like on the knife's edge of revolution and revolt. And also the city is under a curse. And I was like, sign me up. I'm finally gonna get to try Adrian Tchaikovsky. I'm gonna learn, like, do I like this author? I got so excited, bought the book, have not read it. I will though, I will. I'm going to read this before March 5th. It'll happen. Speaking of books that I have the first in the series and I have not read, on March 12th, Empire of the Damned by Jay Kristoff, which is the sequel to Empire of the Vampire, comes out. I don't know how I feel about this book, to be perfectly honest. I have not read Empire of the Vampire yet. It was gifted to me by Jake. Jake is not a reader. He just knows that I love vampires, and so he got me a vampire book. The reason that I'm hesitant about Empire of the Damned is mainly due to Jay Kristoff, and he has like a problematic history with his writing in like the first series that he wrote, and then also in like the Nevernight Chronicles, and he has like addressed those and changed things in like future printings of the book, which I think is great. But hear me out, because I have not done any of the research on this personally. This is just what I have gleaned from other people. But I believe Empire of the Vampire has like some anti-Semitic things in it. I believe like it has to do with like the main vampire character, if I'm remembering correctly. And again, I have not done the research on this myself. The main vampire character is named the Jewish name for like God or like Holy One. And this is problematic and anti-Semitic because basically in order to promote like anti-Semitic propaganda, there was this like notion of blood libel where like Jewish people drank blood to like get powers or whatever. And I'm not trying to say like I know very much about this topic, but we can see how this blood libel being anti-Semitic propaganda would be problematic in a book where you name your blood drinking vampire the Jewish name for God. Like, right? We can see how that is potentially problematic. Listen, other people have done the work about this issue way better than I have. They're way more eloquent. So yeah, I am planning on reading Empire of the Vampire to see how I feel about it, because to be perfectly honest, Jay Kristoff has a massive history of being problematic. However, the reviews of Empire of the Vampire in terms of like the book is outstanding. So I own it. It was gifted to me. I am going to read it. I don't know if I will be continuing in the series. If I do continue in the series, I'm probably not going to like actively promote the book in my channel unless I see that like Jay Kristoff has done something, like maybe he could like change the names in future printings of the book, maybe donate a little of the money he made off of this book to some charities, that type of thing. I don't know, but it's a hot mess, but it's coming out on March 12th. So there you go. Moving on to something that I am way more excited about. On March 19th, A Botanical Daughter by Noah Medlock comes out. This is a debut novel. It's adult horror, and it is pitched for people who are fans of Frankenstein and Mexican Gothic. And if that ain't me, I don't know who it is. Like, oh my God, I can't wait. So it follows two men living in Victorian London who are both scientists, and they live in this botanical garden. And I'm 99% sure it's going to be gay. And I think the men like build a girl a la Frankenstein. It sounds good. It sounds like it's going to be so good. Very much looking forward to that. One of my other most anticipated books of the entire year might be the single most anticipated book that I cannot wait. On March 26th, The Angel of Indian Lake by Stephen Graham Jones comes out. I cannot wait. Thank you, Stephen Graham Jones, for my late birthday present. I appreciate it so very much. This is the conclusion to the Indian Lake trilogy following Jade. I really can't talk about this very much because this is the third book in a series, but I will tell you it involves serial killer cultists, a bunch of rich people trying to buy native land, and of course, we're finally getting into the Lake Witch Curse, and I could not be more excited. If anybody wants to buddy read the entire trilogy with me so that I can reread it, let me know. Oh God, I love it. Stephen Graham Jones is one of my favorite authors of all time, and Jade is one of my favorite characters of all time, and I just, this book might devastate me. On April 2nd, we have a bunch of books coming out. The first being A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. This is their sophomore novel. I did not read their debut novel, but it got amazing reviews. And since I have read a lot of fantasy romance this year, it definitely is a book that I have my eye on. But I think I'm even more intrigued by the premise of their second book. You follow Sarah Swan, who resurrects her great-grandmother, and because she does this, she loses her powers and her magical guild exiles her. And so she's kind of like, well, what do I do now? So she decides to run an inn with her said resurrected grandmother and her magical talking fox. And hello? Like, please, hello? That sounds so cute. When she's running her inn, she hears about a magical grimoire that has been like kind of lost to time that might help her restore her powers. So she enlists the aid of the local historian. Obviously, they're gonna fall in love. It sounds so cute. It sounds so good. I want to read it. It's just gonna be a cozy, good, happy time. We're also getting Court of Wanderers by Ren Chiapeko. This is a sequel to Silver Under Nightfall, which was one of my favorite books, I think 2 years ago, the year it came out. This is an adult fantasy series where you follow Remy, who is a vampire hunter, and in the first book he meets Lady Showden and Lord Malice, who are both vampires. They are a couple. Basically, they're trying to make an alliance with the human population, but there's also this like weird new virus infecting vampires that turns them into like these monstrous killers that pretty much like lose their rational thought. And so Remy is commissioned by the queen to work with this vampire couple in order to find out like what is going on, because obviously these vampires are a huge security risk. They're not trying to make an alliance with like the vampire lords if they're going to be attacked by all of these like weird infected vampires. So Remy goes and they work together, and then they all end up in this adorable polyamorous relationship, and I love it. It's so sweet. Remy is just like the best himbo cinnamon roll you could ever ask for, and I love him. He makes such an endearing main character. I've been waiting what feels like forever for this sequel, and in this one, we're finally getting to go more into the vampire world. In the first book, we went a little bit to like Lady Showden's home, but her home is like very remote and like there weren't very many vampires that lived there. And in this one, we're going to Lord Malice's home, and that is like a prime political place. Like it's like a bustling vampire city. So I'm really, really excited to see like the world expand and get to know more about like the vampire side of life compared to the human side of life. Again, coming out on April 2nd, we have The Last One by Rachel Housel Hall. So I don't really know much about this book, and honestly, the synopsis is really doesn't have very much information. To my knowledge, this author is actually primarily a thriller author, but this will be an adult fantasy. I'm not sure if it's like their debut into fantasy or if they just primarily write thrillers, but the catchphrase for this is, "The world is dying around her, enemies lurk in the shadows, and she can't remember a thing about who she is." So that is very intriguing, but what really got me is that this is pitched for fans of N.K. Jemisin, one of my favorite authors ever, and The Witcher. And here's the thing, I thought The Witcher video game was like fine. Like it's fine. It's fun. It's good. It's whatever. And I DNF'd the Witcher series because I did not like the books or the writing at all. However, I do like the themes and the tropes and like the aesthetic of The Witcher. So even though I don't actually like the execution of The Witcher, the series has a lot that I do really like. So I'm hoping that this book will have the themes and the tropes of The Witcher that I like without the sexism that I didn't like. I wish I had more information about this one, but I I really don't. Like, the synopsis is very short. On April 9th, we have The Last Phi Hunter, and I'm not sure if it's like Phi, or if I'm just mispronouncing that entirely. This is by Selene Goldberg. This is an adult fantasy where you follow X, who is a Phi Hunter, which is kind of like a demon hunter, which honestly is something that I always find super intriguing. And basically, like, he's living his life doing like his normal demon hunting things, but what he really wants to do is hunt down Shar Allah, which is a mythical demon. Basically, he thinks that like if he's able to kill this mythical demon, it'll earn him a ton of money and renown and praise, and he'll pretty much be set for life. As he sets out on this quest, he basically I don't know why, but one day he's getting the shit kicked out of him, and he's saved by a woman named Arinya, who is a very, very pregnant warrior. When she saves him from getting his ass completely beat, he's like, oh my god, thank you. And so basically she enlists him to help escort her home, because even though she's a warrior, in order to get home, she has to pass through this like enchanted forest that have a lot of demons in it. And since he is an expert in hunting demons, she wants help to get home. I don't know, it sounds like it's gonna be so fun. It sounds kind of like a quest adventure story. Like, there's mythical monsters, a pregnant warrior. I don't know, what else do you want? It sounds like it's gonna be a really good time. Also on April 9th, we have The Book That Broke the World by Mark Lawrence. This is the sequel to the Book That Wouldn't Burn, which I believe is going to be a trilogy. Do I have the first book? No. Have I read the first book? No. Do I know what the first book is about? No. So realistically, why am I looking forward to the second book? I don't know. You try to make sense of my brain. I can't. I just get so intrigued because whenever I see someone talking about The Book That Wouldn't Burn, they never actually say what the book is about, but the enthusiasm and the way they talk about like the vibes of the book just has me so intrigued. I just want to read it. I want to know. I saw a comment on somebody's video that they said that they haven't stopped thinking about The Book That Wouldn't Burn a single day since they read it. And I was like, what is it even about? I don't know. But like, I don't know. The way people talk about it and the love they have for it, I just want to know. Like, I also know that it's set in a library, at least part of it. I like libraries. I like being physically around books, so I imagine that I would like that also as a setting in a book. I don't know. It's very intriguing. I did put The Book That Wouldn't Burn on my Christmas list for my family, so there is a chance I'll get it. We'll see. I didn't like tell them I specifically want this one, but maybe. Again, on April 9th, we have The Hemlock Queen by Hannah Witten. This is the second book in the Nightshade Crown series. It is the sequel to The Foxglove King. I do not know how many books are planned to be in this series, but I own the first one. I have not read it, but I will try to read it by April 9th. Honestly, since The Foxglove King came out this year, I have not heard a single positive thing about the book. It does seem like it is just a massive flop across the board. However, I do still want to read it myself because the premise sounds so interesting, and I'm just hoping that like I'm in the minority. I hope that like this one is just a win for me, even though nobody else liked it. It just sounds so intriguing because you're following a girl who has death magic. There's like warrior monks involved, a ton of political intrigue, and a romance in it. Like, this book was nominated in the fantasy romance section in Goodreads, so like I want to know. I'm very intrigued despite the very poor reviews. If I like The Foxglove King, I will be picking up The Hemlock Queen on April 9th. But wait! There's more! Again, on April 9th, we have The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. This, I think, will be Leigh Bardugo's last chance with me. I think I might also try to, like, get this book from the library before I buy it. I read the first like Shadow and Bone trilogy, and I also read like the Six of Crows duology. And while I had fun reading those series, I pretty much felt like all 5 of those books were like good but not great. And I know that that is blasphemy to say on BookTube. Like, people love Six of Crows. While I could see that like Leigh Bardugo's like craft and writing improved from like her first series to the second, I pretty much felt the same about both of those series. Like, I just thought like they were fine. Like, it's a good book, you know, if you want to read it, read it. I just genuinely didn't really think there was like anything that special about them. Don't come crucify me, okay? It's just my opinion. I think that Leigh Bardugo is not an author for me. However, she has recently, in the past few years, moved into the adult fantasy genre. And because I was so lukewarm on her young adult series, I have not read Ninth House, but she's finally got me with The Familiar. I'm gonna give this one a chance. We will see, like, maybe even though I don't really love her young adult, maybe I will love her adult work. This is a book that follows Luzia, who is a servant in a house, and one day her mistress catches her doing magic, and her mistress wants to use the magic to improve like the family's social standing. I don't know if like Luzia is like on board with this or is kind of just like doesn't really have a choice, but as she gets more and more wrapped up into the social scene, she meets a man who is an embittered immortal familiar. And I don't know if he is the familiar of an immortal or if he is an immortal who is also a familiar to somebody. Like, I don't know, but like it's giving vampire vibes. Like, look at the cover, look at the font that's chosen, it's giving vampire vibes. So like, I don't know that this is a vampire book, but it definitely feels very vampire adjacent, and I want to read it. On April 16th, we have a book that is definitely a vampire book. It's Immortal Pleasures by V. Castro, and I don't know much about this book, and I don't care, because you follow an Aztec vampire woman who travels the world stealing back, like, cultural artifacts that were taken when like nations were colonized. Sign me up. Like, I'm sold right there. I literally don't need to know anything else about this. I'm going to buy this book. I'm going to read it. It sounds great. There's also like a romance in here involving like the vampire and 2 men who I think like one is a human and one is another vampire. I'm not sure if it's going to be like a love triangle or if it's going to be like a polyamorous relationship, but again, I don't care. I'm gonna read this book. At the end of April, on the 30th, we have Heavenly Tyrant by Sharon J. Zhao, and again, this is the second book in a series. I don't know if this is also the conclusion or if there will be more books in this series. Again, I have not read the first book in this series. Do I own it? Yes. Does it stare at me every day from my bookshelf asking me why I haven't read it? Yes, it does. This is a fantasy series where in this world, the military operates these like giant mechs, and they're operated by a woman and a man. And somehow like the mechs kind of like draw on the life force of these pilots. In the vast majority of cases, the mechs will draw too much and they will end up killing like the woman pilot while like the male pilot will be fine. Enter our main character, whose best friend was one of those pilots who was killed, and she's out for revenge. This is a series that focuses a lot on both feminine rage, but also examining like toxic masculinity and how we can break that down. I really want to read this book. Like, I need to. It's not even that long. I don't know why I haven't gotten around to it, but hopefully the sequel coming out will give me the push that I need and I can finally get around to it. On May 10th, we have a book that I don't think anyone but me cares about. But we have The Princes of Legacy by Angel Lawson and Samantha Rue. This is the 9th book in the Royals of Forsyth series. It also is like the conclusion to the Princes trilogy. This is a very, very dark bully romance series. I eat up this series. I've read all previous 8 books and I think it's very well written, but I don't necessarily want to recommend this series because it is very dark. I don't know anybody else who's looking forward to this book coming out, but yeah, if you want to know more about this series, I will be talking about the first 2 books in the Princes trilogy in my wrap up, so look forward to that. On May 14th, we have a debut cozy fantasy romance. It's called The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, this cover really, really gets me. I love cozy fantasy covers. There's just something about them, and to be perfectly honest, I will never ever get tired of flowers on covers. Like I said, this is a fantasy romance. You follow Marigold, and she loves being out in nature and just existing, and she's had some suitors come to try to woo her, and she hasn't really had any interest in them. So one day her grandmother says, okay, well, why don't I train you to be the next honey witch? Which, first of all, how cute is that? A honey witch? Shut up. That is so cute. The catch to this is that the honey witch is cursed to never be able to find love, but Marigold is like, well, I am not interested in romance anyways, so sure, sign me up. Let me be the next honey witch. Enter Lottie, who is a skeptic and does not believe that magic exists, and Marigold is like, no, I'm gonna convince you magic is real and you're gonna see. And then obviously they're gonna fall in love. Then some type of dark magic is gonna awaken. I don't know what kind of dark magic. I don't care. This book sounds really delightful. On May 21st, we have The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. This is an adult dystopian mystery. I've read everything that Stuart Turton's ever put out. He's a fantastic author. I'm definitely going to read this. This book is set on a small island which pretty much houses the remnants of humanity. Something happened in the world called the fog. Who knows what that is? And basically now humanity is just living on this one island, and they have scientists there who have set up some type of security system that prevents the fog from overtaking the island. Until one day somebody murders one of the scientists, and then they hack into the security system and take it down. And then they also have the security system somehow erase every human on the island's memory of what happened the day before. So now we have a murder. We have to solve it in 92 hours and get the security system back online. Otherwise, the fog is going to come and kill everybody on the island, except no one has memory of the day before. So the murderer doesn't even know that they're the murderer. This sounds so good. The stakes sound so high. I feel like there's going to be so much tension. You don't know who you can trust. The idea that the murderer doesn't even know that they're the murderer is so genius. I cannot wait to read this book. Also on May 21st, we have Vaishnavi Patel's sophomore novel. We have Goddess of the River. I didn't fall in love with Kaikeyi, but I can just tell that Vaishnavi Patel has so much talent as an author. So this is her second novel. It follows Ganga, who is a river goddess, and one day she does something to piss off a sage, and the sage curses her, and part of that curse binds her to a mortal body, and she is stuck in this mortal body until she breaks the curse. Ganga is desperate to break the curse and get her freedom back, but along the way she marries a king and gives birth to an infant son who she is forced to leave behind when she does finally break the curse. I'm really, really hoping that this book is a masterpiece massive win for me. It has some of the same themes like family and destiny and love that Kaikeyi had, and I'm just hoping that like Vaishnavi Patel really nails this one. On May 28th, we have S.T. Gibson's second book coming out next year. Honestly, I'm really shocked that they have 2 books coming out, but I'm gonna get both of them and I'm gonna read both of them. This one is called Evocation. It is the first book in a new series, and you follow David, who is a psychic prodigy, but also somehow he has an ancestral debt with the devil. I don't know if like he made a Faustian deal, his family did, some ancestor in the past. I have no idea, but the devil is coming to collect, and so David enlists the help of his ex-boyfriend and his ex-boyfriend's wife in order to find a way to keep the devil from literally taking him to hell. It sounds like it's going to be really fun, potentially pretty gay. We'll see. On June 4th, we have Tidal Creatures by Shannon McGuire. This is the 3rd book in the Alchemical Journey, which is supposed to be a 4-book series. So far, I have only read Middle Game. I read that this year, and it is a 5-star read. I love it. I think about Middle Game all the time. I don't know much about Tidal Creatures just because I still haven't read Seasonal Fears, the 2nd book in this series. And even though each book does follow different characters, they are connected. I am trying to avoid any spoilers by looking up information about this book. There's just something so magical about Shannon McGuire's writing, and I love the idea of alchemy and the unseen world. Like, it just sounds so interesting, and Middle Game was, in my opinion, a perfect book. I actually did pick up Seasonal Fears in paperback in a Black Friday deal, so hopefully I will read that soon, and then next summer I can read Tidal Creatures. Cannot wait. On June 25th, we have another book that I am actively not looking up any information for. We have Griffins Valor by Mercedes Lackey and Larry Dixon. This is book 2 of Kelvrin's Saga, book 1 being Griffin in Light, which I just picked up recently. Again, I don't want to know anything about this. I also think that like not many people are looking forward to this, at least like in the booktube community. I really don't hear anybody ever talking about Mercedes Lackey, so I don't feel too bad that I don't know much information for you. Here's a little sneak peek for some of my 2024 reading goals, but I do want to reread the books that I have by Mercedes Lackey and then get to her new releases, which I have been like accumulating for years but not reading because I need to reread her older books. It's a hot mess, but I am hoping to make a significant progress in reading all of these Valdemar books that I have. So I don't know if I'm going to get to Griffins Valor next year because I have like 20 books before that, but we'll see. Hopefully I can read some of them. On June 25th, we are finally getting Children of Anguish and Anarchy by Tomi Adeyemi. Now, this is the conclusion to the Legacy of the Orisha books, and I, again, am not sure if I'm going to pick this book up. I have my eye on it, and I want to wait until this book comes out, and I want to read a bunch of reviews about it because, first of all, I'm reading less and less young adult books every single year, and this is a young adult series. But also, even though I loved the first book in the series, the second book had issues with like pacing, and it was like kind of clunky to read and just like awkward at times, but like also the ending of it kind of completely turned the story to like a completely new direction. And I just don't know that all of the issues that were left unsolved in book 2 and the way the book ended and the new direction it's taking at the end of that, I don't know how all of that is going to get wrapped up in one book, which I think is like only around 400 pages. So I'm kind of hesitant about this. I'm gonna wait and see what the reviews say, and I might pick this up, I might not, but either way, if you've been looking forward to this series concluding, here you go. It's coming out June 25th. On July 9th, we have The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst, who is the author of the Queens of Rinthia series. This is a series that came out years ago and was very, very popular in like old school booktube. I personally have not read it, but this is going to be a cozy fantasy romance, and I'm just going to read you the tagline because that's what sold me on this book. Also, the cover, like, look at it. It's beautiful. But it says, join Keela or Kayla, I'm not sure, the librarian, and her assistant Kaz, the sentient spider plant, as they navigate the low-stakes market of illegal spellmaking and the high-risk business of starting over. It just sounds like so cute and quaint. And who doesn't want to see how illegal spellmaking is gonna go? It sounds great, and I can't wait to give it a try. On July 23rd, we have Queen Bee, the story of Anne Boleyn, Witch Queen, by Juno Dawson. This is the third book in Her Majesty's Royal Coven series, which, depending on how the booktube knockout that I'm working on this week goes, I might be picking up Her Majesty's Royal Coven very soon. Her Majesty's Royal Coven is a paranormal fantasy set in our world where, like, wrapped up within the British royalty, there is a coven that has some sort of influence on politics. I don't know all the details because I have not read the series. It seems like this book, though, is going to go back in time to the founding of Her Majesty's Royal Coven, and it is going to involve Anne Boleyn. And that sounds like a great time. I kind of love the idea of reimagining Anne Boleyn as a witch. There were so many people that, like, at the time were convinced that Anne Boleyn was a witch, and like that's how she was able to like get the power that she got. And so I just love the idea that like she really was a witch. Like, it sounds fantastic. I should be able to read Her Majesty's Royal Coven and The Shadow Cabinet before July. In August, on the 13th, we have Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. This, again, we don't know much about this book. There's not even a cover for it, but I love Shakespeare. Macbeth is super creepy and just like ultra dramatic. And this is going to be a retelling of Macbeth from Lady Macbeth's point of view. Sign me up. That's all I need to know. And then the last book that I have a firm date for is Bringer of Dust by J.M. Miro. This comes out September 17th. This is the second book in the Talent series, the first one being Ordinary Monsters. I don't even think there's like a synopsis available for this book right now, but the first book follows magical children basically, and there is some type of like shadow man hunting them down, trying to steal their powers. And in Ordinary Monsters, you follow two children who are currently like being escorted to like try to get to safety, and like obviously things go wrong along the way. I'm sure as we get like closer to the release date, we'll get like more information about this book. Before I close out this video, I did also want to mention two books that don't have a release date, but I do have my eye on. I cannot wait. That is Stormlight Book 5, which has a title, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. Didn't write it down. Editing Jessica will let you know here. On Goodreads, Stormlight 5 has like expected 2024 release, but I really don't know if that's gonna happen. I feel like if we were getting a Brandon Sanderson Stormlight in 2024, we would already know. But I mean, you know, we do have like a full year. Maybe it'll come out in like November or December, and a bunch of releases will get announced like in the summer for the fall and the winter of 2024. So there definitely is the possibility that we will be getting Stormlight number 5 next year. I'm not getting my hopes up. And then the other book that I wanted to mention is Electo the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, which should be the conclusion to the Locked Tomb series. I have no information about this book. No idea, no cover, no release date, nothing. I just know that I want it in my hands right now. The Lock Tome series is one of my all-time favorite series, and I'm just hoping that it'll get announced for 2024. That would be fantastic. Please and thank you. Okay, I'm sure this video is so long, but thank you so much for spending time here with me today. I hope I was able to add a couple of books to your TBR. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate that. I hope that you stay safe this week, stay warm, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye!